open meeting of the Berlin Historical Commission. It is March 10th at 10:05 according to the clock. And it looks like we're all present. So let's take attendance, I guess. We need to do that. Ellie? Here. And Barry?
Yeah.
Lucy?
Here.
Janet?
Here.
And June here. Okay, we'll start out with the prior minutes, which Janet has nicely produced for us.
Which I
For
printed.
210 and 217.
And let me just say that I had trouble with these for no particularly good reason. I think I was just tired or something. So I think I sent you at least 2 different copies, but the first one needed corrections. You would help me with that. And, so I hope that you may not have seen the latest ones only because I sent them out last night.
I got them.
Oh, okay. I thought, so if people want time to read,
You can do that if
you
you
can
want
do
to.
that. But the only thing that changed from the ones I sent out earlier is little boo-boos.
I printed it.
But, and June vetted it very carefully, so I think we can trust that they're okay now.
Well, there's a lot of information on the 17th when we met
Yeah.
and went over the options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Well,
of
and then I was
information.
attaching,
I
was
thought
trying
it
to
would be
attach.
easier. I guess my thought was that if you attached the documents, you wouldn't have to work so hard
With the detail.
with the
Well,
narrative.
right, but I didn't know I was going to attach the documents
Yeah.
until you said to.
Yeah.
And then, so
Well,
I had
maybe-
already typed it all up, so.
Oh, yeah, well, it's good to
But,
keep
yeah, no,
all that.
that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I think
love that
I think
idea.
in the future it might save you a little
Yes.
misery.
Oh, yeah, always,
Pain and suffering,
Yeah.
always.
yeah, yeah.
So, does anyone need the 210 minutes? That, I didn't see the 210 minutes from last night, but I saw them from,
They should be the
A
same.
couple of
Oh,
days
we
ago.
got them last week or whatever.
Yeah, from the couple days ago, it should be. I probably didn't need to say.
and that, when you post that one, you would post it as your Word document.
I did, I think, yeah.
Yeah, not as a, this
I
this
put
comes
it-
out as an email.
That one did, because I wanted to attach to it, and you can't attach, I mean, you can attach to a Word document.
Well, you know, you can, once you've loaded your minutes, you can also load other documents.
Yeah,
There's
I
a-
do that, yeah,
There's
I've done
a,
it, yeah.
but, and you don't have to,
I don't know what went wrong, but I don't think we
Yeah.
should even
You
try to
don't-
figure it out. If
yeah.
it's right now,
Yeah.
good, because
you don't have to attach, you can upload them as a document to that site,
yeah.
just so you know.
And so last night when something got screwed up, I said to James, he walked through and I said, James, I don't ask any questions, just fix this for me. And so I don't know if you noticed.
Well, you
but-
get exasperated after.
Oh, I was so exasperated. So he just put them all as attachments.
Yeah, okay,
And I
well,
said,
that
"Good."
works, that definitely
Perfect.
works, it's just a little, it's just,
You have technical help.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
had
it's a good
technical
thing
help
we have
on
James,
this
I'll
one.
tell
I don't know why I
He's
needed
helped
it, but
me.
I did, so
Sure.
I was tired.
Okay. So, are we all set with 217? Barry's reviewing 210. I'm all set with both of them. It looks like Lucy might be.
And as I mentioned, June has vetted the recent ones, and June never misses anything.
Well,
So-
that's not,
So I feel
that's not
very
true.
confident.
But I just so appreciate you doing it because I know, because I've done it for so long before.
Yeah, I had written in the options, and the questions and answers before I realized that he would, no, it was before they sent the one on with the columns. And so I'd already done this and I thought,
Yeah.
oh gee, well, I'm not gonna just throw this away, we're gonna get 2 things. so.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
So can we have a motion to approve the 2:10:23 minutes and the 2:17:23 minutes.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good, unanimous. We like the unanimity. Okay. All right, now the Bullet House has a few items. I did manage to get the invoices. Thank you, everybody, for helping me get enough signatures. I didn't get Ellie's signature, but
We talked about it.
we talked about it, yeah. It's nice to have everybody's, but I couldn't wait till today because she's gone. And it would delay the payment another 2 weeks, and I didn't really want to do that. That's why I scrambled. Anyway, so it was $900 for the engineer's report and his site visit, and it was $1,218.75, I think, for the last invoice from Mogul, which would include quite a bit, Zoom meeting and, actually it would include that, his FaceTime previously from November, because I don't think they billed in the interim.
Shall I write those figures down?
Well,
Or will there be
what I
one?
can do is give you our balance.
All right.
Now I have a financial notebook because it was getting a little overwhelming. We, once those are actually out of our CPA account for the Bullard House, our balance would be $193,427.29. And we still have $2K in the imaging pocket that we haven't used. And the Highland Commons money remains the same. It's almost 12,000, 11,780.44. So that was,
12,000, I know it's the same, but.
it's
Oh,
11,780.44
11,000. Wait a minute here, 11,780.44 cents.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. And then our, our budget hasn't been expended, and hopefully that's, well, it's only 600 because it's last year's, right? Yeah. We won't get our 615 until next
Till
year.
July.
Right.
July 1st.
And our donations account's the same, which is $739.08 or something like that.
Oh,
Which
But it's the
is
same.
most of it is Bullet
Bullet
House,
House.
money that we had given for the Bullet House, so
And
it should
you-
be spent on that.
Yeah, and it's 700 something or other?
It's the same as before.
Oh, okay, that's fine, I've probably got rid of this before.
I didn't put it on that sheet.
I shouldn't correct that quick and take it. Sometimes they say that can happen.
739.08. I
Thank you.
can read it through the back door here.
Thank
Okay, and I think that's all of our money. Budget, donations account,
And this is called,
CPA money and mitigation money.
no, I mean, the 7339 was from.
That's a
where?
donations.
Donations account, right?
Yep,
Which Barry said was, the majority was
Yeah.
Bullet House, for Bullet House.
there is $100 in there.
That's general.
We actually took $10 out of it because our imaging, for the first part of the imaging went over the 500 for $10. So I suppose that last $100, the 10.
90, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, so that's that for the invoices. The letter of intent passed, the resolution to go forward with that passed unanimously at the select board meeting. And, we were asked to present grant information, and Janet really worked hard to make a small capsule for them, but they didn't go
Oh,
there.
yeah. That's all right, we got it. It's so that if somebody else asked us to talk to them about
Yeah.
what's going on, we have it.
Did you leave them a copy, or send them a copy for their file?
Well, the letter of intent they have to sign. We don't really, it's just a generic thing that is a sample in the instruction
Yeah,
manual.
I know about that, but I mean, more my question was
Oh.
the information.
Oh,
Oh,
no.
that, no, I didn't send that, because that wasn't official anywhere. I mean, we just never
If they
used
didn't, if
it.
they didn't bring it up, it was. that was
I
done.
asked and they said no, but see, they had a lot going on.
Yeah, well, they always do.
And there'll be many other opportunities to talk
Oh, yeah.
about those things.
Oh, yeah.
It was the schedule of the
But as you say, you
grant.
keep it together because,
I've got it,
and you've
yeah.
got it
Yeah,
for any other time.
yeah, and it'll be useful for that.
Is that in the Dropbox?
No.
No, but I can put it in there. I think maybe I'll just, it would be better to put it in signed instead of just the sample, but if that's all I have, I can just do that. The other thing, I did produce the warrant article, but there's an issue that I brought up with Kristen yesterday because I had a chance to go and talk to her. The preservation restriction runs with the land as well as the building. And we have another building on that parcel.
We have two other buildings on that property.
Where's the other building?
It's called an elevator on the town hall.
Well, I'll bring that up too. Anyway, all right, let me write that down. So,
That whole town hall addition that was built the last time is almost
Is
entirely on Bullet House land.
okay,
Because the original Barnes lot was basically filled up by
Yeah.
the town hall building.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
so somehow, at some point, all the articles will go to legal. And,
Oh, yeah.
and so that question will be asked. And I think there has to be some exclusionary language in the warrant in the preservation restriction and in the warrant article to make sure that those other buildings aren't encumbered.
I think that it probably would be smart while we have Ross doing stuff there, to have him divide that piece of property. Have him put a
Boundary, a new boundary. Let's see.
boundary on there that keeps the house separate from the rest of it.
For both the storage and
Yeah,
the extension.
Because actually the storage is considered 12, number 12, not 4.
it's considered part of 12, and that's because it's fire alarm is a zone off of the town hall. In other words, if there's an alarm there, it has to go to 12. They have to go to 12 to deal with it.
You have to present that at town meeting to change a boundary for town property.
Oh. That's a good question, I don't know.
Well, we could ask that also to legal.
We're not acquiring the property. But maybe it would, I don't know, that's a question I'm not sure of. We're not buying anything,
We're just rearranging it.
we're just dividing it, but, I just see it as something that would probably be simpler in the future if
I
we
didn't
have,
think of that.
If we keep the bullet house
if we
completely
make the
separate.
bullet house separate.
I did remind her that the curatorial building is number 12, is
Is linked to the town hall.
is linked to the town hall, yeah. Okay, so there's more questions then.
So I'm not sure that I totally understand this. So right now, this whole property, which is the town hall as well as the Bullard House and the curatorial building.
It's not one parcel.
It's not one parcel, okay. So the division right now is where?
Well, the town hall basically takes up the entire lot that it was assigned to, the Barnes. It was
Okay.
given by Barnes.
Oh, okay, so now,
So when they had to put in the handicapped access, there wasn't room on that parcel of land.
Mhm.
So we had already bought the Bullard House, they just extended that onto the Bullard House property.
So how is the curatorial building still associated with the town hall?
Because Barry said that it's linked through the
It's a
alarm
technicality,
system.
yeah.
Okay, so it's a
It's just
technicality.
it's just
Got
a
it.
number,
Yeah,
instead of being number 4, another
It was the
building.
garage to the Bullard House,
that's what I thought.
but when they
yeah.
created it into the storage facility, they had to upgrade things.
Yeah,
And it got
And we
linked.
ran underground
okay.
power and stuff over there from the town hall.
So the driveway is associated with and the parking lot are associated with the Bullard House, not the town hall.
As of right now, yes, it's on that piece of property.
Yes, see, in the warrant article, you have to identify it by its assessor map and lot number. And when you look at that, our curatorial building is on there. I'm not sure when you look at that, and assessor maps are not definitive maps, not used for legal purposes. They are an enormous help, and they're, but they're for tax purposes, really.
You know that generator that's next to the town hall?
Yeah,
It's about half on Bullet House land.
is that, okay.
That's how tight the
All right.
and the line goes right back to the extreme corner of the town hall. It was virtually, the town hall was dripping on the Bullet House land in the back part of it, on that side. So almost all that land was Bullet
Well,
House land.
It is possible to ask them to do the work since they're gonna be there, but it doesn't need to be, well, for purposes of that's a lot to accomplish.
We have politics to deal with before we can do it. We gotta talk to the selectmen and stuff before we can
Yeah.
divide the properties.
I think maybe it's a separate matter.
But I think it might be valuable to
Yeah.
pursue.
Oh, yeah, I do think so, but I don't know if we could accomplish it by,
To lump it all together right now.
yeah, I don't see how we can do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think we have to address.
But
the
we could,
challenges.
we could certainly get, well, Ross is gonna have to come back anyway, at some point. I'm pretty sure. because
Well,
we could-
we'll talk to the town administrator about it.
Again, yeah, she's hard to nail down, but to try.
Well, about the matter of if we want to divide it, whether that would be a
How
good
do you
idea.
do it?
Yeah,
And what do we have to do to do it?
yeah, she'll have to submit that to legal.
Who will be talking to her? Put it in minutes, is that-
Nobody who knows what's still.
I will, I'll tell her what we came up with and,
Well, we need to dig out the information on all that.
I have all the maps, but I don't have them with me right now.
Do you have the map that shows the buildings on the whole property?
Well, when you look at the new assessor map, it shows the footprint of the curatorial building. But I don't believe it shows any extension of the town hall elevator addition. But I'd have to look at it again.
Is that the new curatorial building, huh?
I think so. Well, anyway, I'll have to talk to her again about that. I did talk to Kristen yesterday about procurement thresholds, because I don't want us to get into have a problem. The master planning that we're undertaking now, and we're not finished, is exempt from that is not part of the 30K, which is the procurement threshold for architectural services. And that order was estimated at 12,000 to 15,000, and we've spent Well, we just spent another bundle, so we spent about another $2,100, so we've spent less than 7,000. Of that 15, it could, so we have, at least, we have more than half of what we estimated to spend, and without worrying about the 30,000 that we have to adhere to for what's to come. I also talked to Dan about whether he was willing to hang in there with us, or whether he would want to just do the master planning and then take a back seat. And he's willing to go forward with us. And I've made him well aware that we have to stay within the 30K. That also includes, it includes construction phase plans. So,
What happens if you need more? We then have to go
well,
through bidding and all?
yeah, see, if we just stay with him, then we really have to.
Well, this is for the 200,000 in CPAC funds that we're talking about all of this, and
It
not
comes up.
necessarily some further work later on.
That's right. It's just that if we estimated that the actual architectural, the actual design and the construction phase plans, if we estimated that to go over the 30K, then we'd have to go out to bid. And he could certainly bid. I mean, there wouldn't be any.
Yeah.
I went through that with Paul Holst at the grant, because we're always looking at what the grant requirements are too, besides just, our regular procurement stuff. So anyway, I've been trying to keep track of that. And Kristen would like to meet with us at our next regular meeting, which would be on April 14th. If she can hold that spot open. She wants to review how far we've come, what might be left of the master planning, and how we're doing with the regulations that we have to observe. So hopefully she can do that. And I guess the last thing would be that I have called Paul Wheeler, and I did get a call back that he would definitely be happy to do the Title V, and that he also agreed to connect with Dan Wolf at Ross Associates so that they could coordinate the site time, the timing. And I got a little note from Dan Wolf that he hopes Paul Wheeler will arrange that quite a bit ahead of time. And so I've called Paul Wheeler again to tell him that, but I think I need his cell phone number.
I have his cell phone. He responds better to texts.
Text messages. Well, if you
He rarely answers his phone to the
Yeah.
text.
if you text me his cell number, then I will text him a message. I don't mind doing that. And also I need to tell him, because I had forgotten to ask Tom Lamb's company for his W-9 and his certificate of insurance. And so we scrambled to get that together by Thursday this week, and we did. But I need that from Paul Wheeler too. So,
I have a question. I don't want to, this changes it slightly, so if you're not.
That's okay.
Okay. I'm curious about, me always looking ahead. It's annoying because you have to deal with all the nuts and bolts.
It's okay.
But I'm curious to know about the archaeological planning and whether that's something that we feel we want to do, period. And then secondly, the order in which that would need to be done, compared to digging things up to put in foundations and that sort of thing. I don't think I had talked to my friend Phil before our last meeting, so I didn't report any of what he said. Phil Zay is the man that I've talked to you about with the background in, very, very extensive background in museums. And he most recently just retired from being the president of Historic Deerfield. And prior to that, he'd been in Winterthur and he'd been in Williamsburg as their, one of their very important curators. So I mean, he's done a lot and he's gotten around. So I said, ooh, let's ask him what he thinks about this. And so I just told him what we were doing and that we were trying to figure out the chronology of how all these different things would be done. And he said that without doubt he could say that if we want to do archaeology, definitely do it first. I mean, we know that's logical, but so we haven't done much planning around archaeology, and if in fact we want to follow that advice, which I think we've sort of already been talking about, you'd have to do it first. That planning, I was trying to figure out how that synchronizes with putting the foundation in. When were we thinking that we might start with that? And is archaeology something we want to do?
Well, definitely if we were going to run a walkway from the parking lot down.
Yeah.
I think that would disrupt things as well too.
Yeah. And a lot of things have been disrupted, as you point out. But there may be places that haven't been disrupted. And I think we're all very curious about that buried foundation off the side of the house. Nobody's ever really figured out what that was. And I don't know how much digging has been done there already. So I bring that up not because we need to talk about it today, but it almost feels like something very soon we need to get under our belt one way or the other. And will that be the first thing we do, even before we do the foundation?
Yeah, it would be first.
Yeah, and we haven't really talked with
Al Smith. Yeah.
Too much about it.
What he told me was that we have to have the areas that are going to be disturbed by our work in order for them to do any salvage. So we're getting close to knowing that if that contractor comes and evaluates positively for option 2, then I could just have Al come. I could have him come and just look at the site as a whole if you want me to.
We had a previous proposal to dig down all around the house and put concrete on the outside of the existing foundation. And that was going to involve so much excavation that's about how we got into the fact that we needed to do archaeological, because that's going to mess up all kinds of things. If we go with a plan where we're working from the inside of the house, that may be somewhat less of a problem.
Another thing that he made me aware of was that any construction work, there's usually a staging area that they require, and that is a place that they would examine also, unless we don't see any reason for it. But it's a very small parcel.
But we had a great deal of use of the lawn on the side toward the town hall was used for the staging stuff for the town hall project. Remember when that was all covered with piles of this and stuff, and so forth and so on. Materials for that project, so.
The other question that I was wondering how it fits in is, I think one of our very important things that we're going to have to do is deal with the drainage I mean, we can fix everything all up, and then if we don't deal with the drainage, it's gonna be a wreck in no time. So,
Worthless.
that would be, the other thing is what kind of damage to the, you know, the ground is gonna,
gonna
how
be-
much digging up is gonna be done to do drainage too?
Yep.
In which case that would again maybe suggest that we need to push the archaeology to the head of the
Yeah, well,
list.
I can certainly call him and have him come. I mean, I can ask him what his fee would be just to look at the site without, without knowing, without having to have his company make an estimate.
And this would be Dan Wolf, I mean, his company,
No,
Ross.
Al Smith's company
Oh.
is actually remote from New England.
Okay.
It's a big company, and to tell you the truth, the name of it is in the Dropbox, but I don't have it in my head.
But he wouldn't be doing the drainage part, he'd be doing, Ross would be doing that part, or?
Well, I'm talking about the archaeology.
Right, but I was thinking, what other places might get dug up that we'd have to include in the early archaeology project? I mean, I'm assuming that section, the sort of the hillside coming off of, wherever they put all that
Coming
clay
down from
that
the
was.
parking lot, that's
Yeah.
an issue.
Yeah, and so,
Well, we're interested in that, and we
so that would bring Ross into it, the Ross Associates into
No.
it. They're not gonna do the drainage thing?
well, they wouldn't do drainage before archaeology.
No, but I'm just saying where we would definitely want to do the archaeology.
Ross won't be doing anything under the surface when they come with Paul
Okay.
Wheeler.
You're just doing the evaluation.
They're
of
just
the-
using
It's
their,
evaluating the septic
So
system.
They're using their-
who would we hire to do the actual drainage job?
We've
it's
got to
part
have
of
a
the
plan for it.
engineering, yeah, it's part of the engineering.
Okay, that goes to
Part of
the
the
engineer,
engineer.
okay,
Yeah.
good. That's kind of what I was driving at, I wasn't asking.
Chances are that might involve Ross in the future, but not yet.
Okay.
So
All
it
right.
sounds like you have an awful lot of pieces to put
Lot of
together.
pieces.
So you put the archaeology, you have the drainage with the Title V. The archaeology would have to be done before Title V, I presume? No?
No, Title V is just looking at
Looking
the
at the-
system.
Evaluating the present system.
If we have to do something because it fails, then
Yeah.
we
The
might.
septic.
And you're disturbing the,
And the septic right now, sorry, I haven't looked at all the, where is the septic right now?
It's on the side of where St. Lindsay's house
Okay,
used to be.
where Rebecca
okay, kind of
lives.
in between?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay.
I can show you where it is when we're there. I
That
can
might-
show you
I'd
where
be
it is when we
delighted to.
have a map in front of it.
I'd be delighted.
So it seems
That's what I
like
wanna know.
the two questions really are, well, the big question is, do we want to do archaeology? But is sort of what I call, it's math, it's the orders of operation, you know how they talk about that in math? And I think that it's the order of operation and whether we're willing to, it will hold back some of the other stuff that we were talking about, but, and is it important to us to do archaeology? I think those
Why
are
don't
the
I
two-
just, why don't I just have him come?
Master
How far
plan, or
back
is
do you want to go? Do you want to go
I think
up
it
on
is
the
in
hill?
there
Because
somewhere.
There's some
Yeah.
little things up there.
To
The
consider.
master plan,
Oh,
to
it's gonna
Lucy's point,
be
the
here.
master plan was laying out what needed to be done. As you
Yeah.
said, there's a lot of things going on.
Mhm.
And the master plan is kind of saying, well, you need to do
Do
this.
you have
and
the
then this,
spreadsheet,
and
the
this.
master plan spreadsheet?
Okay.
I know, it's in the Dropbox.
I think it's basically those three things, though. The
Yeah.
archaeology, the drainage, and the foundation. And, you know, for heaven's sake, we might spend all of our money on those things, but without the drainage particularly, I think we're gonna just lose money constantly because things are gonna keep rotting out.
You're not fixing the problem.
You're not fixing the
You're just
problem.
putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, that's my personal
Do you want me to have him just come as a favor to me
Hmm?
and look at the site?
Oh, Al?
With the archaeology?
Yeah.
Al?
All right, I'll call.
That would be great, yeah.
I'd be willing to make him some really good lemon bars.
Yeah, we'll feed
Yeah.
him.
And
Alex.
by that, we'll have his, we'll consult with him and have a better idea of what might need to be done, and we'll talk about what some of the possibilities are. But
I actually have something to show him. I think one of those boxes of rocks,
yeah,
I think that they're gaming stones.
They're what?
I think they're native gaming stones,
Really?
yeah. Anyway, I wanted to look at them.
Which ones are they?
They were in a tomato box, and they were spread out, so,
Yeah.
and that's the kind of space they took up.
Is that the round ones or the?
So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So, I want him to look at those.
Where did you find those?
In the Bullard House,
Oh,
It's
And-
part of the
and-
collection that was given.
oh, okay.
yeah.
Good.
Part
We
of
have
the
a
stuff
lot of,
we've had for a long time.
yeah, we have a lot of wonderful specimens, and some are numbered. There's even at least 2 pottery shards in there that are
At
native.
least 2,
Pottery shards
yeah.
that are native to. I haven't spent much time, but I've, you know,
That's neat.
anyway.
They're probably part of the collections of Erastus Wheeler,
Okay.
way back.
That's the end of the 1800s. When did he die? I forget.
I don't know, I have to look it up.
Yeah, okay. So I'll call him and see what his availability is and what he could do for us unofficially. And
That would be nice.
then I'll get
yeah.
back to you about that.
And I mean, that's down the road, but I think it comes up awful fast, and then you haven't. Yeah.
Well, all these people have schedules and work
Mm-hmm.
that they're being paid for, and you just get on the, you're
Mhm.
just another person on their list, you know, and they do the best they can, but,
So this would have to be coordinated with the 1870, and if they have any programs during that time. Because with the staging, it's going to take up a fair amount of space. And the different works, you have to
Mhm.
coordinate it with them too?
We'd have to somehow have accessibility there, wouldn't we, to the elevator?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it depends on where they put the stage in.
well, we have most of the land. So, I mean, not that we aren't respectful of all the other uses that it, you know, but it is,
But the
does
land
belong
there
to
is
us,
in the
does
village.
belong to us, okay.
If we're going to be doing something that could mess up access to the town hall, well, that needs to be coordinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, you know, these people are used to working under a lot of constraints, so,
Especially if they work in cities.
yes, that's
Mm.
right, that's right.
Yeah, this will seem
They have
like.
no space to work without using somebody else's.
Is there anything else dealing with all the technicalities at the Bullard House in terms of, you know, contracts and, because if not, we can go ahead to the next, which is the demolition delay. So Barry, you still want to have a public hearing
Yeah.
on the, and,
At this point, it will be on the 31st of March,
yeah,
Why does it keep getting extended?
because we don't get the notice in the paper right. And I now have it hopefully in the paper right.
Did you get an email from them about how to pay?
About how to pay.
Because I did. And I haven't done a thing with it because I don't know if you want to be bothered with the electronic payment system that they've set up.
Oh, I don't. Maybe it's on this stuff I've got here, I don't know.
No, it's a separate
It
communication.
was a separate communication.
Yeah, and I can forward it to you, but I probably should just show it to you and see if you're willing to do it their way. They can't, and maybe
It
June.
isn't for me to be willing to do it their way, it's for June to be willing to do it
Yeah,
their way.
and she's not here. So maybe for now, that's true. Maybe for now I could just tell them that it has to go through our town accountant and she's not available until such and such a date.
Well, I already sent back that we'd received this stuff and it's all fine. And we'll put it through for payment, but it's gonna be some delay because the accountant's on vacation.
You already told them that.
I already told them.
Okay.
I didn't tell them how
Good.
much, but
Okay,
there'll be some.
all right. So,
Now, is there a deadline that we have to have the hearing by in order to get a,
We missed it a long time ago.
oh, okay.
The answer is,
Yes, but,
this isn't going anywhere anyway. But I want to do it for form it's an obvious old house that's in a public location, and I think we should have a public hearing on it. I know that it's damaged. We have, we have that other information, but I just put it out there, see if anybody shows up for a public hearing on the subject.
Okay.
That's all.
Are you obligated to talk to Jared?
To notify him, yes, and
Yes.
that's my next thing. I've got this much done. Now that I know that this is gonna happen.
Okay, so it's the 31st at 7:30 here.
31st at 7:30 here.
Write it down.
Yeah,
I always think, oh, I'll remember, and then I don't.
yeah.
And basically, it's a discussion of how its significance, its unique significance, yeah.
We're gonna do that, but the real question is, we've already decided it's significant. The real question is, does the public see it that way? Because if you're gonna do the 6-month delay and that kind of stuff, you have to have the public mobilized as, there's other people in the public that
To
think this is
support it.
right, that it's important, as opposed to, if nobody thinks it's important, then why wait? Even if you know it's significant.
Who cares? Yeah, no
Yeah,
one cares.
that's the kind of thing. So this is really to gauge public opinion on the subject.
Mhm.
That's what the purpose of the hearing really is. And we will, at the hearing, we'll say a little as we did before about the history of the building and what we see as significant about it. And we'll also hear comments about its condition and other circumstances that affect the situation.
Problems. it
Yeah,
has.
yeah. And then we can act on it otherwise.
And we thought perhaps that we would be able to get some photographs and all if he gave us permission.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that will also
Mm.
be factored in, but the thing that, the agenda for the meeting needs to be the public hearing first, and then a further discussion or action on other things connected with it, so that we can continue our meeting and talk about it after the public hearing's over. If we want to that day, we can also do it at another occasion. But I think it's a good idea to have a line or two, any other business that might come before the meeting kind of stuff, so that if we're there together, we can do something else if we need to.
Okay,
I
Do you have
don't,
a time that you'd want to have that meeting?
well, the meeting is scheduled for 7:30.
7:30.
The hearing.
But the
Hearing.
public hearing is at 7:30, and then we'll continue on after that if we have something else we have to do. I don't expect to spend a lot of time on it, but we just need to have that on the agenda so that we can, if we don't have it there, then one could assume that there would be nothing else done except the public hearing. And we might dispose of the whole matter that night,
Which
That
would probably
probably
make
good.
Jerry happy.
which would be good
yeah,
for all parties concerned. Now, we have a bill for $23.76 for
To pay.
from them, for these notices. And I've made out a sheet so I figured while we're all here, we could
yeah, we could sign.
we
off.
could sign it, and then we don't necessarily have to put it in. I'd like to wait to actually put it into pay until I've actually seen it in the paper.
I keep looking at the item, and I keep thinking, wow,
No, it
we
hasn't
didn't
been
shop
there
It
again.
won't be there
That's
till,
what's supposed to be there.
let's see, it won't be there till next Friday, right?
It won't be there till next Friday.
Yeah, okay.
It won't be there till next Friday.
So you almost have to
The
do it in 2
17th.
weeks.
Hmm?
2 weeks?
Yeah.
The 17th.
One, I'll notice 2 weeks before and a notice a week before.
Okay.
So it'll be the 17th and then the
24th.
24th,
Yeah,
yeah.
so those are the 2 times it should appear on the paper.
Okay.
I think I better subscribe to the item. I don't get it.
It's $39 a year.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Yeah, it comes out every Friday, so, but it's kind of nice to see.
yeah.
you
Oh, Oh,
Get
sure.
the local
Well,
stuff.
see, I, you
Oh,
They
know,
used to get a lot of local stuff in the Worcester paper, and now that's
It's
not
fine.
so much, now that it's owned by, what, USA Today or whatever it is.
And they've got no staff anymore. I mean, the big staff they used to have isn't there.
Gone,
The Clinton item is like, like Cleveland. One guy
yeah.
is the news
Jan,
staff
yeah.
of Clinton item. And
does he still work for?
he was last I knew, I don't know, within a year. he
Well,
was-
Jan
Goss,
does.
whatever her name is, Goss,
Gottman.
Gossman, she got reinstated.
Oh,
She's back.
oh,
So it's kind of, it went down to kind of almost nothing, and now it's kind of getting a little
Getting,
bit
yeah.
more.
yeah, yeah. But these outside groups that buy these papers, and they're doing it all over, and discontinuing them left and right all over the country, small papers. And if they're in existence, they're shades of their former self in terms of the staff and any of that kind of stuff. So it really is kind of a tough thing.
Okay,
Anyway, I move that we approve the 2276 for payment.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
Do you want us to sign it? please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll send it the same pin.
Okay.
Do you see anything that you would remove from the building? They just, they tear down?
Yeah, but I don't know it until I see all the junk out of it, so we can see it.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, my thing is to talk to Jerry and see if we can,
He's got it full of his
Stuff.
equipment.
Oh, that's right, you didn't get to see it.
Really?
No, I didn't.
piled with stuff in storage, all sets of shelves and all through the whole house.
Oh,
And
well.
hardly even see the walls.
You'd swear that the downstairs had dirt floors because they come in from the fields and that's where everything's stored. So the rugs that were there, it looks like they were rugs and now it's just soil. So it's, it's a different from most houses.
But yeah, I'd like to pull a couple of pieces of woodwork someplace.
That would be
probably.
It'd be nice to have.
But it's pretty simple stuff, so I don't know, we'll see. We gotta see what
It's
condition it's in.
it's basically one room wide. I mean, the house looks bigger because it's the wide part on the road, but it's not very
Yeah,
deep.
I've been in the house when Mr. and Mrs. Marble lived
Yeah.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
That's a huge.
It's not a very big house.
No, it's not.
And the spaces are so carefully tucked in everywhere. You
Yeah.
could tell probably a lot of people were living in it at one time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the most interesting things about it is that the attic
Yeah,
is entirely finished as one room, the whole length of the house.
really? That is
Still has the
interesting.
curtains hanging in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's a finished attic
Mhm,
and in a great big long room.
That must
So,
have been David's room.
well, you put all the kids up there. or
Be a fun
whatever.
room to have.
I mean, at one
Big
time.
windows
The
at both ends so
stairs
you
are
get
a
light.
killer though.
Hmm?
Oh,
The
yeah.
stairs
Yeah.
up to the attic are a killer.
Oh, yes, they're very
Very-
narrow and steep.
Yeah.
Very high.
Yeah,
More like a ladder.
Yeah.
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 No reds.
And, but it's interesting. I mean, it's just a lot of interesting stuff. It's an early house, 1800 about, and it's very simple and plain inside. But most of the ones that of that type have either been expanded and made more to be more, or they no longer extend.
Yeah.
And 2 or 3 of them that are left, or 4 or 5 that are story-and-a-half houses, they're much smaller house. This is a 2-story, but it still is interesting, and it was, I think, remarkably well preserved
Yes, I do too.
in terms of not being greatly altered.
Yeah.
Which is another piece that's interesting, because usually anything that's been around that long gets altered over its life.
I wondered about the one big room at the end that was sunny where it looks like they eat their meals there. I wondered if it was so much bigger than the others, if they'd taken a partition or something out of there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah,
it's possible.
but it's still not very big. It's just relatively big.
Yeah, but right now it's so full of stuff, you can hardly move in it.
But it's all machinery and things like that. It's their barn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a storage.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, there's one room that's got all the signs from the orchard, Macintosh, all the different
Mhm.
kinds of apples that they put out when people are picking apples.
And it's just full of stuff.
Yeah.
You'll see it. I think he'll let us go in and take it.
But we want, what we really want, he wants to build a new barn up back to put all the stuff in, and then tear the house down. And my thought is, if, when you get your stuff out of it, can we get in there and just have a chance to look around and photograph again and so
Yeah.
forth? Or perhaps get a few artifacts or pieces of wood or something.
Okay,
Fireplace mantle.
yeah, the fireplace. Yeah, that was one of those was
It's
coming
in the
up.
base-
It was
it's
pretty
coming up,
hard for
yeah.
us to view
And
that.
if 20 people come in here and are saying, this is an important house you gotta save, then that's another whole situation for us to deal with.
Mhm.
That's not gonna
I don't expect that to happen.
I don't
No.
expect it either.
I think most people already wrote this one off because of the lightning strike and the damage that came from that.
Yeah.
happen. Okay, Janet wants to talk to us about storage and policy.
Well, yeah, for the collection, because we've got to start dealing with
Thinking about it.
yeah, we got to start thinking about it. So I thought, I was thinking, how do we tackle this? It's a big topic. And I thought, well, let's look at our vision and mission statement first. Because the thing that when I was working at Sturbridge Village, I was part of a team that took a house that looks very much like the Bullard House, not inside, but outside. And they turned it into the parsonage. They decided they needed that. And so every part of making that change reminds me of what we were doing. And what I'm realizing is that everything has to be in sync. Like we were just talking about, you do archaeology first and all that. And nothing can be viewed in an isolated way. So deciding whether, this should be part of the collection, it has to do with, first of all, do we have something like this in the collection? And then secondly, is it
Do we have that works with it?
is it, well, do we want to talk about that? Is that something that is part of our vision? Does it have anything to do with Berlin history? Does it, or with the way life was back then? So all of these things we have to think about are integrated and can't be done one thing at a time. But, when you have to sort of figure out what you're going to do with the collection, you have to really focus on that, of course. But let me just read, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the sort of key parts of the vision and mission statement. I don't know if you've even seen these yet. We did those quite a while ago. And the mission statement was to interpret the history of Berlin, its people, and its institutions through a local history museum in a historic setting that tells the stories of over 200 years of community life and continues this historic narrative into the future. So what leaps out at you, of course, right away is, this should be about Berlin, right? And maybe some other things kind of leap out at people. And then in terms of the vision, the Bullard House Museum will be a center for activities and engagement with the history of Berlin, its people and families, community organizations and churches, industrial activities, social life, architecture and artistic pursuits. Exhibits utilizing items from the town historical collection will be used in conjunction with programs and interactive activities to engage visitors of all ages. And I'm just going to read a little bit about what it says about the house, not the whole thing. The house itself interprets local history through its use as a tavern, inn, and store at the turn of the 19th century, the blacksmith's house from 1813 to 51, the post office in the 1880s, housing the town fire truck in the 1920s, and commercial activities in the early 20th century. Military connections include being the family home of 2 Gold Star brothers in World War I and a room's use as the American Legion Hall after World War I. And I think I can kind of stop there. It continues to just talk about the historical things and how we want to work them in. And then I'm going to jump down and do the last paragraph. Staffing will evolve with the Bullard House itself, beginning with volunteers and perhaps leading to a paid position starting with posted hours and special events and transitioning over time to more frequent regular hours. Visitors will be welcomed by staff members who will maintain the museum, lead activities and discussions, help set up exhibits, teach historical skills and crafts, invite visitors to share discoveries, or just travel back to the past. A Bullard House Friends group could be formed to structure the building's volunteer opportunities, creating camaraderie and soliciting input, as well as build consensus for activities and projects. Kind of good to read that, I think, when you're trying to
Yes.
set up what artifacts do we need, you know. Okay. And there are a couple of other things I was going to share just as a foundation for our discussion, if that's all right with people. Is that all right? Okay. Let's see. I'll go to this one. This was where I reminisced a little bit about how we transitioned that house I mentioned, the Parson and Richardson house, into being something different, which is a little bit what we're doing. What they ended up with was that the house itself was the authentic artifact, which we're going to use the house in a number of ways, not just as this is what this house would have been like back then. But anyway, but this is about that other house. Why do I bring this up now when we have plenty on our plates? Because I was thinking, what do they care about Sturbridge? But I have flashbacks to my old Sturbridge Village days and the experience I had as on a team that was creating a whole new interpretation and storyline for the Richardson House, which became the parsonage. The researchers, curators, and interpreters were all at work from the get-go, like a couple of years ahead, or a year, at least a year ahead. And like us, they made use of the collection. When the research was in place and the papers written and artifacts chosen and walls papered, then came the staff training. And there was a lot of time that went into staff training. The method of delivery to visitors fell under the interpretation department, which was where I dwelled and where my teaching profession served me well. We went through extensive training, including learning some role-playing skills, an experiment that Old Sturbridge Village hadn't done before. It was the one house in which we had scheduled tours through the house and invited the visitors to join us as we role-played the minister and his family. We have some good stories about that. I'll tell them some other time. One of my I had to stick this in. Just so you get the idea, one of my specialties was to play the rocking organ, which I pull out of the corner cupboard, set on the parlor table, and then I'd play religious songs of the day, somewhat like an accordion on its side with keys.
Is it like a portatif, like a Renaissance?
Maybe. It sat on its side. You'd pump the air in with your arm, and it had a keyboard. And
We
you'd
call it a
play.
lap organ.
Yeah.
lap organ.
This one was called a rocking. I mean, I think it's like the Great Wheel. There were about 5 different names for
There
it.
was one of those in Berlin, and it belonged to Emily Wheeler and her family. And it disappeared the day of the auction when they were cleaning out the house at 11 Carter Street before she moved across the town. And it wasn't supposed to be sold. It hadn't been planned that way, but it was. It disappeared that day anyway, and that had supposedly been used in the Evangelical Meeting House in the 1830s.
Oh.
And so it didn't. It existed and it was around until like 1948 or something, but then it disappeared and we don't know what happened. But it was one of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to read, and you've heard this so many times, but I don't think it hurts with what we're going to be discussing now, and that is the criteria that we came up with for deciding whether something's worth keeping or not. And there are 9 things, but I'll read them fast. 1, the object is attributed incorrectly or is not authentic. That's a good one. The object is inferior to another. I'm sorry. This is the following criteria for deaccessioning, or getting rid of if it hasn't. Yeah, and if it has never been accessioned, for Somebody brings a box of stuff. Do we want this stuff? The object is inferior to another of the same item or category in the collection. Object is a duplicate or a near duplicate of another object or other objects in the collection. Object is in poor condition, damaged beyond reasonable repair, and not appropriate for exhibiting or useful for study or teaching or research. That's about, covers it all, doesn't it?
Well, that's really important, though,
Mhm.
what you're saying there, because it isn't all just what you would display.
Right.
It's also the things you need to, for study or that back up your,
Well, that's one of the reasons you were gonna
Yeah.
keep some of those beams, right?
Yes,
Because you wanted to use
yes.
them as a teaching. They weren't
Yeah. Right.
useful in and of themselves.
That's right, a chunk of a beam, and it is, and they also weigh a ton. I wanted the kids, I don't know, what was heavy wood back then? Was it chestnut? I don't know. But something,
chestnut, yeah.
you gotta try to pick it up.
oak and chestnut.
Yeah, anyway, without digressing. Yes, right, so study, teaching, or research may be the reason you save it, even though it isn't great for exhibit. Object has been requested through legal means for restitution or claimed as stolen property, forgery, or fraudulent. That could be a good one to put in our blog, so that people say, this is an exciting place. Okay, the object is infrequently or never exhibited. This does not apply to textiles, paper, or anything that's sensitive to climate and light, because you can't leave them out for a long time, so you have to rotate them a lot. Object is a threat to the health and safety of the staff and public. We have an example of that. There's a chair upstairs that we wish we could repair, but I noticed it's broken into 7 pieces, and it's split broken, not like glue has come out of the seam. And it would be a great chair, but really, can we do that, and risk the health and safety? Number 8, the object cannot be taken care of properly because of conservation and storage requirements that another ownership could supply. And-
It's too much for us to take care of.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And number 9 is the object is inappropriately placed because, I like this one, it does not contribute to the mission and collection goals as defined by the Historical Commission with input from the Historical Society. And that was kind of what we were talking about before. I think that's why we read
Yeah,
the
does it come
mission.
from Berlin that would have been used in Berlin?
Or is it something that people in Berlin used all the time? We might not know the provenance, but it may be the perfect example of something that we don't have, but they would have had, I think that kind of would also fit
The
in
Berlin
there.
Collection holding a Maori War Club. So,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah,
Why?
yeah, exactly. And that's not a be-all and end-all list, but it's one that we kind of came up with together way back. And so anyway, that's probably enough chatter about that. And this, we do not need to read this. This is the list I have so far found of places you can take things. Everything from savers, that you can just run down the road with it, to things that really deal with the antiques, local auctions. Oh, and one other announcement is that Jane Sawyer is very happy and willing to work with us on this whole issue of what do we save, what do we get rid of, where do we get rid of it. And the one thing that I don't know where I put this last thing, but I did write up a little. Oh, here, I put it in this book. And then I'll be quiet and we can talk about the collection, but I just think it's nice to put it in the context of things we've already done or talked about. No, I must not have brought it. See if I can think of some of what I wanted to say from my sketchy notes. I was trying to think of what we've already done. Darn it. Don't you get mad when you do that? You write something up so it will go nice and smoothly and then you don't bring it. I think what we've done is what we've just talked about here basically, is we've come up with a plan for how we will decide if we want to keep something. But I think to be done, one is a tour. One of the first things is we should go through all of the storage areas, because you haven't seen any of them.
Yeah.
And it, I mean, and it wouldn't hurt if we all went through those again, I would think. List an inventory that could be done quickly, not a, you know, if we don't have time for that. A fairly quick inventory of things that we haven't inventoried and don't know where they are, and I don't know what those are. You probably know better than I do, Mary.
Well, the biggest spot to start is down at Village Power, right?
Well, the only thing about Village Power is that that's already inventoried,
No, that's-
except things we've added. So that one's in good shape.
We have a list of what's, I mean,
Yeah.
Upstairs here and over at the fire station.
well, the fire station, we have an inventory that we were mandated to produce.
To create for the board of selectmen.
Did they do?
We do have the fire station inventory.
Well,
Yeah, we have a.
Good enough.
there are a few more things there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're,
which we can add to that list.
yeah.
But that's, and I mean, one of the things, there are some things at the fire station that are what I would characterize as on the way out. In other words, we're not too sure about, and one of these days, we're gonna make decisions on, one of which is periodicals, old periodicals that people have given us over the years. And we need samples of things, but we don't need a 10-year run of it. Or
Yeah.
a 2-year run of it, for that matter. A couple of issues is plenty for us to have. So there's, that kind of stuff is one of the things that we have been putting over there, with the idea that one of these days we're gonna greatly reduce the amount of that we're keeping.
Yeah.
There's a variety. I've got also town records. I've got the boxes of town report papers that Katie and I started 40 years ago, 45 years ago, whatever. And our papers from each year were saved in the box. And I have started pulling out some of the stuff and throwing it away so I could consolidate boxes into, you know, in a smaller space. But a lot of that stuff, once the book's been published,
It doesn't matter.
how much does it really count to keep all that other stuff? So that's another category that's over there that is, as I say, on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
All of it or a large part of it will be gotten rid of.
You know, I think that's where your experience is so valuable, and the fact that I know how hard it is, particularly for you because you've lived with this collection for so long, to let go of things. And so I just want to, what am I trying to say, acknowledge the fact that you're being realistic about some of these things, because, you know, there's only so much room. And so I just wanted
Well,
to
and there's
acknowledge
only
that.
so much that we can take care of, right?
Yes, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Also manpower, I mean,
Well, that's part of it. that when
I
you
mean,
have-
you have to, there has to be some ambiguity allowed because you don't know what the future is and what kind of interest there will be, but still,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'm gonna stop in a minute, but I think the other area that we're gonna have to pay attention to is stuff that I'm just betting none of us sitting here is very good at, and that is selling stuff, getting on the computer and, you know, finding homes for things. And some people love that. They love going online. We need to find those people, and we need to have a small team of those people, because we do not have time with everything we're trying to do with this to sit and find homes for the things we decide that we don't.
It's
We
not
can't fit them into the
trash, but
picture.
it doesn't
Yeah,
go with us,
and
yeah.
I don't, speaking for myself personally, I'm not sure how much we even care how much money we get for these. We just need to get them out
Oh, yeah.
of the spaces.
Yeah.
And of course, we probably could get some money. So I'm not sure where to go with that. The person who has most lit up and indicated this is a really good thing for us to do and probably would help us find people like that is Peg Stone, because she is very pleased that we are addressing this, and has been supportive in little ways by, you know, giving me addresses of this or that. But she may know people too that are part of the town that would be willing to do that. If anybody knows somebody or is somebody who loves doing that, because I think in the end, that's gonna be maybe the hardest thing for us, is figuring out where to put them.
Well, selling online is, is certainly an option. But I think that there's
It's not like we've got a pile of stuff to sell online.
I think if we really came up with a grouping of items,
Mhm.
I think we should start with a silent auction and make it an event.
Make it a town event.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it
you're
would
right.
be different from our yard sale, which was an incredible amount of work. But it would be like that, in that it would be it'd have the structure of a meeting. And a silent auction, you can put a reserve amount if you're really fussy, but you don't have to. If your goal is really to put it in the hands of someone who really wants it, and you can't take care of it.
So, I think that, and I think those are the best ones, because you probably get rid of more stuff at one time. And Barry, now that I'm thinking of what you're saying, it is true. We have what seems like a lot of things, but I bet you when we do that tour, we'll realize that it's not a ridiculous number of things that we'd have to get rid of, However, I don't know what space they're going to give us, what extra space besides the 2 buildings we have. It may just be one spot. And so, it's gonna depend on where we can, unless we wanna pay ongoing money to have a storage unit somewhere, which I'm not sure that's worth it either.
Well, keep in mind that right now, we've got everything in storage.
Yes,
I mean, the
But some of
largest
it is-
part of the stuff that's in Village Power now is stuff that you're gonna have in the house.
mhm.
All of the furniture from the house is down there.
Yeah, but we can't put all of it back into the house, because you couldn't have a display. We couldn't walk in some of those rooms.
Yeah, well, like 2 organs, I mean, there are some big pieces that we don't have to put back in.
And we don't plan to.
Yeah.
We don't plan to keep 2 of those.
But it's true that, and there's some big pieces in the fire station too.
Yeah,
And the Empire sofa that got moved into
Memorial
Hall. yeah.
Yeah.
But the point is, you
Might
do
be
want to
for
be
a
able
while.
to change the furniture in rooms too.
Mhm.
So you're going to have some furniture in storage all the time. And in order to be able to change it and have it different sometimes.
But Village Power is only temporary storage.
Yes,
it's
right.
not
That's
permanent
temporary storage
Right.
while we're doing work on the house.
So if you acquire another storage area, it has to be controlled and climate controlled.
Well, that's part of the rest of the issue
Yeah.
at hand, is that we have some control in the curatorial building.
Right.
We can, that right now, they're not running the heat in the fire station, which is part of the reason why so much stuff is in South Berlin. And they also have a roof to fix there. And if those things were solved there, I mean, it might be possible that
Just
we
sort
could
of,
have
yeah.
stored everything there instead.
Uh-huh.
But there's, yes, you've got the matter of how much control. There's some objects that don't need much control, and there's other objects that do.
I wonder how much of what we have, I was trying to think of what the process is that we're going to use for this, and how much of the collection is duplicated to the point that it doesn't need to be. Are there things that we could cull out and still?
Ephemera, certainly. That's huge, though. Huge.
Well, ephemera is huge. Some of it is, I suggest there's some duplication in it. A lot of it is just that there's loads of it, And that really gets into an awful lot of
That's a labor.
laborious stuff going through it, trying to decide which piece of ephemera to save and which one to throw out. I mean, come on. I mean, we're talking about Christmas cards and
postcards and just all manner of different stuff.
Well, they don't take up as much room, but,
That's easy to say.
like, for instance, like Tuesday Club programs, it seems like we have a lot of duplication.
We do have a lot of duplication.
A little sample of
Yeah.
maybe what we should reduce.
Well, how many sets do you need?
Yeah, yeah.
And we do get a lot of that kind of stuff given to us. And obviously, we don't need 5 sets of them or 10 sets of them or whatever. And right now, we've probably got at least 4.
Yeah.
You know,
And,
what might be a
One or
good,
2 is ample.
what might be a good to do, you know, how do we move forward sort of thing,
Yeah,
is
that's the
to
trick.
come up with, not the criteria for getting rid of, but the criteria for keeping. So that when you bring me your box of family things, you don't leave it. But we look at it. And we, not being me, but people who know what they're doing. And then it goes home, the stuff that we can't use goes home with them. And we just never take something and never let somebody just leave a box and say, can I drop this off?
Yeah.
And I think that's
Because
what
people
other
will do
places.
that,
Yeah.
and,
Other places are starting to do that. Peg found, I think it might have been Hudson, it doesn't matter. One of the towns has questions that the person has to answer before they even bring their stuff over. And so that you've already culled a little bit, because you've asked them to.
the condition of an item, the relevance of an item. There was one question which I thought was too over the top, and that was, how could this be used in a museum?
Yeah, they wouldn't know that.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a fair question.
No.
I think,
No, because a lot of people wouldn't think it was
Yeah,
worthwhile when it is,
yeah,
because it's of local interest. I mean,
and we don't want them to
The-
decide what our
The
museum
topper was
is.
when a top town official asked me one time, in regard to the collection. Well, I mean, how many, do we have papers signed by Thomas Jefferson? And I mean, a bunch of stuff that would be of national archival interest. I want to say, huh? You really don't, I want to say, you really don't even have a concept of what collecting local history is all about.
Right.
And the fact is, something signed by Clifford Wheeler, is of as much value to us as something by Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah, that was inappropriate. I mean, I kind of see where they were going, but if you don't have the background, you can't answer that
If you
question.
don't, no,
Yeah.
you can't deal with that. So, and the other thing is, a lot of people say, oh, well, that stuff isn't important. Well, it might well be.
Mhm,
And it's when you get a pile of stuff out of a house where people have had stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
And case in point, town reports, another one of my problems of having too many. But I've got them now out of our way, so. In Florence Ann's stuff, in the stuff that came from Florence Ann's house, we found 2 annual school reports of the printed reports from 1855 to 1887 that we didn't have before, from any source. And in a stack of stuff that came from Marjorie Rossiello, Raymond Cole's daughter, was another one of those that we didn't have anywhere else. That the Wheelers didn't have in South Berlin, the Yeagers didn't have in their collection, and so forth. And a couple of years ago, I went through and copied all of those reports, the single copy that was available wherever it was from, and then made duplicates of them, new ones. And there's a set in the town clerk's office, and there's a set in the curatorial building, and I made a set for myself, since I was making them. And I made and then all of the original ones that we had, that my family had that nobody else had, when it went to the vault along with all the rest of the stuff. So all the original copies which are 1 or 2 copies of it, are down in the vault downstairs here now. But this stuff, in years and years and years of hunting, we'd never found those 3 issues. And then out of these houses, they came.
Yeah.
And we still are missing a few. Eloise refuses to bind what she's got. She wants to bind them, but she said, but I'm not going to until we get the other 3 that are missing. I said, forget it, you're never going to see these. The 2 years of of selectmen's reports, we've been looking for 50 years, and we haven't found them anywhere. The school reports we'd never really done as carefully before, and now we've got that. I've got that accomplished to the best degree we can. But you never know what could come out of someplace, somewhere,
You know,
or from some family that's still got a little
They're
box
not
of old papers
necessarily-
from Berlin.
Yes, but they're not necessarily living in Berlin anymore.
Oh, no, that's right, they're across the
They've gone
country.
away and
Yeah.
they might work their way back.
And they might come back. We got stuff from Betty Wheeler-Rulo, her family. She was still alive, mind you. I didn't know it, but she is. She was still alive a couple of years ago. And her relatives out in New York State sent us deeds and stuff that had come from their family home, which was out on the end of Summer Road. But their ancestor had been Moors that lived up on Wheeler Hill. And there's a whole bunch of more deeds from up there. They think that they came, that it's all the farm on Summer Road, but it's not. But the point is that's Berlin archival stuff that was gone, and I didn't know what had happened with Betty Rouleau, but it turns out she was still alive in a nursing home at that point. And so we had a rather nice cordial statements back and forth
Yeah.
about that, and we got this stuff, these papers.
neat. I was trying to think of the process, because we really need to start knowing how we're gonna make this happen. And the silent auction is a neat idea, and I guess I was getting a little carried away when I thought that we were gonna have to start selling things at Savers, and we might eventually at the end, but maybe starting out with some things like the silent auction. I'm trying to think of the logistics of this. Peg came to me the other day, or she emailed me or something, and we were talking about the closet, apparently the closet under the stairs in Barnes Hall has a lot of stuff in it. But I can't imagine it's that big a closet. And I was seeing, and so she said, we want to come, she and somebody else, and take those things out. And more like, she was planning on doing that. And so I said, well, is it, it's a small space, it's a good place to start. I mean, I don't want us to say,
It's not a good place to keep stuff, though. It's very humid, and
but apparently we have stuff in there. We don't?
I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, so.
It's things like the closet cupboard doors out of the old kitchen.
Okay, so that may be a place to start. I mean, there may not be a lot of historical stuff, but it's becoming historical if it's the old doors from the kitchen. I mean, that's how it happens, and that's how it all starts to collect. And so, I think she's planning to go in there and do that, probably because maybe she knows that there isn't a lot of stuff that we would have to, and she's not gonna throw it out, but she's gonna get it out and get it started. But so that made me think, well, okay, so what's the chronology of doing this? We have no extra storage places right now. So it's not like we can say, okay, let's start over the fire station, and we'll take the things out that well, we can't, there's no place to put anything, as far as I know. So how do you,
Well, you
do you see
could,
where I'm going with this?
you could
How
at
do do
least,
this?
you could at least identify what could be offloaded
At our
at-
first
at-
silent auction.
at whatever,
Yeah,
at whatever opportunity you decide upon. I mean, to me, that's a first step, is identifying
what we could
what
get.
you could do without.
Basically, that fits your criteria there, that, oh, it's a duplicate, oh, it's not in very good shape, oh, it doesn't have really anything to do with Berlin per se.
Yep,
But see, aren't these things that could be offered, like if you have these duplicates, instead of just I mean, I'm not sure if you wanted to throw them out or destroy them or whatever, but offer them up at an auction, whether it's a silent auction or Jane doing an auction, for people who are trying to restore their homes, their antique homes. You know, like
I
you've
think
got
that
some
would be the
doors.
purpose, wouldn't it, of a
We
silent
also
auction?
have to have permission from the town to do this because it's their property.
Mhm.
And if they're asking
Good
you to
point.
take it out of the, you know, the storage units, then that shouldn't be, the permission shouldn't be too hard to get. You know, because I think
But
they
it ju-
kind
it's
of,
it's just,
I think they
It's
it's a
just
sort of
format,
step.
I mean,
it's just a step,
I had
one
to go
step.
through that when we isolated town-owned dishes that were in the Bullard
Mm.
House.
Mhm.
But
They finally decided, yes, we could put them in the yard sale. And then when we tried to give them the money for it, they wouldn't take it. So now we have this $22 that's floating
Yeah.
around in Marcia's treasury.
Not to worry about it. Throw it in the wastebasket, then we're done with it. Yeah,
Put in the donations account.
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah. Well, yeah, and,
Well, that's
So
the
that's-
thing
so
is
one of
that
the
they
first
said that
steps
we
would
couldn't
be to
have the
go-
money.
well, we'll figure that one out, I think, so one of the first steps, besides getting,
Yeah.
They were left
the
with the
town
problem, of what
involved.
do they do with it?
Right.
And then they said, that, so they just kind of ignored
So they
it.
donated.
They want us to get rid of stuff,
Yeah.
and so they will not give us a hard time, I can tell you right now, that, unless it's, you know, a grassroots thing that people don't want to give anything out. But whatever, it's silent auction or some other thing. All right, so then what that would require, if we don't have any place that we can throw the stuff while we're waiting for the auction to happen, is we'd have to start coding things or putting a little note on things and saying auction, auction, auction. I mean, I don't, so it means going through the collection, and that's where the culling thing begins, and
Just-
marking them
Yeah,
somehow.
just leave it where it is, but in a
This
separate
isn't
pile.
a project to do. This is an ongoing thing. I mean, it's something you
Yeah, but
work
if you
out when
wanna
you can and so forth. And it's not like you're gonna get a huge amount of volume accomplished with this thing.
Well, I would say that this may end up being a project, or someone else is gonna come in and make it a project. I think,
But I think if you want to have an auction, then you really do have to have a project to get enough volume.
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It doesn't mean you
Yeah.
have to go through the whole, but maybe if we isolate, we want to concentrate on this area of the collection to weed out.
I mean, the curatorial building is really not a pleasant place to work now. We just,
Is it too crowded?
Because we keep having stuff shoved in on us that was somewhere else.
right, but maybe you and I can figure out how to get that table cleared and
so we
fold
could,
it up so we can use it if we have to, but it won't be
Well, I
blocking
know,
the
I was
stair.
talking,
Yeah.
I've talked about that. It's,
This is just an aside, but
Yeah.
Edith, who's been storing up stuff in her house, decided it had to go, and so we've taken them, there's still a mess more up to her house that we haven't got yet, and we've got a pile of stuff to deal with, and it's, I mean, that's just one of the things that's happened, and that we're trying to deal with, but we're gonna have to deal with some of the stuff that's boxed in clothing. We've got too much
Yeah,
stuff
I
from
agree with you.
mid-20th century.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it's going to be ongoing, but the larger the event can be, I mean, the more people we might get
Interest.
the better, of course, but it doesn't mean that also there may be some smaller things. Somebody may say, you know, I have a little shop and I could put a couple of these things in, you know, who knows what would turn up.
Oh, you could put
But-
some stuff in a consignment place.
Yeah, but in the meantime, while we have to get to that period where it's nice enough out that you can have unless we did an interior auction somewhere, then, and this is where we might be able to get Jane to help us with that.
Also, you could build some goodwill because money isn't the bottom line
Right.
here. It's finding, you know,
Finding
someone
a
who's
home.
interested enough
And we
to.
made $1,000 without charging a thing. We just said donations the last
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
so,
we did.
yeah.
That's great.
But, okay, so then we talk with the town, make sure we're, you know, that they go along with these plans that we have. A silent auction could be one of them, and I'm sure we'll think of some other things. Leave the stuff where they are, where it is, because there's no place to put it, but begin to label things so that we know what to pull out for various different events. What else?
After identifying,
See, one of the
As
things,
we go
and
along.
I've brought this up a couple times, and there's an opportunity, if you're still having the old, was it the old home days, to actually advertise, if you wanted to sell some things, I mean, it
Yeah,
doesn't
you
have to
wanna-
be an awful lot, but you'd have to advertise it, saying that the Historical Society will be having, selling antiques or period pieces.
well, that's what we did with the yard sale, or I
Mhm,
tried to do. I mean, it was advertised as vintage.
Vintage, yes,
And,
it
and
was.
also there was, in one of the communications, it tried to give some categories, for
Mhm.
instance, bottles.
Then you could redo
Yeah,
that and do
yeah.
something like that again. But I
Yeah.
think at the, old home days, you get a different group of people coming, and
If we have one.
I know,
Well,
That would be a
and
great,
look at
that
the
would be a
number.
great opportunity.
it
The number
would.
of things they came up with the other day when we were sitting and talking at 19 Carter, the number of things going on in this town. Most weekend days, once you get into good weather, they're like 3 things every day. You know, the scouts of this, the that. And I don't think there's gonna be trouble finding places if we can get permission to do that. If we
Yeah,
just keep looking at that calendar that Mary Reddington is putting together, not our calendar, but the whole town.
It's
whole town
a
calendar.
center village calendar.
see, the other thing I think is Mary is working on that website for the Historical Commission, and if there were things that you wanted to sell on there, like just advertise that there are doors, antique doors, which I would be interested in because I want to replace my door. Different things like that, different pieces of woodwork or something that would interest people who are trying to restore their homes, and there's a lot of people doing that. They want something that is authentic.
And we would finally know eventually, I mean, we're going to have to decide which things we want to keep for the Bullard House, but at least we'd be starting to do that so that,
See, the only thing that you have to worry about that is how will you get it to these people? And you want to do some local so that they can come pick it up, so you don't have to get it, involved in the postage and all
Yeah,
that
the
other stuff.
transportation would have to be
Yes,
on location.
yeah,
mhm, mhm,
things like that, those are things I think you want to think about.
mhm.
But, I have things in my house, I have antique doors in my barn that, what do I do with them?
Mhm.
I've taken them down because I wanted to be able to get in through my house without having to have a door.
The nice thing about that is it feels not just like we're trying to get rid of stuff, because, I mean, we really wish we didn't have to get rid of any of it, but it's like,
Recycling,
it's
repurpose.
almost like now a little service operation.
it is.
They come and look at our stuff, or tell us what you've got that you're trying, it's kind of a neat, it could go, and you were saying, it could go on and on and on after.
You have to be careful about the issue, though, of the fact that you've got town property you're dealing with.
Yes,
And
yeah.
individuals getting it, they've got to pay for it in order for it to be a legitimate deal.
And that's exactly right. I mean, that's what we'd be trying to do, is to raise money.
Well, they weren't too, Kristen said to me at the time, I don't have that piece of paper here, but it's like 10 grand, anything under 10 grand.
Is it the
They're not
one that-
worried about.
that we just got about?
No,
Oh.
it was another one
Mhm.
that's part of my other
Oh,
book,
Okay.
yeah.
And I
But
have to
still,
leave.
yeah,
Sorry.
Lucy has a medical practice that
that's all right.
she needs to go to.
Thank you for your contributions.
Yeah,
What do
well,
we have left on our agenda?
So,
I
well, I
don't-
just want to make sure we know where we're going next with this, because I think we have
Yeah.
to start on it. So it would be having a tour, maybe having a meeting we could all kind of go around. And then if we want to start earmarking things that
Before or after you go on your trip?
It might be while I'm gone, I don't know.
Nah, we want you here.
We're back, we're back for town meeting, we're back on the 30th of April, and gone in the second, by the end of the first week of April, so it's a 3-week vacation. And, but I don't.
What, 3 weeks before you go?
Yeah, about 3 weeks before I go. So, but don't feel like you have to have me around to do any of these things. I mean, somebody has to take minutes, that's the only thing, but, you know.
Well,
Okay, I just want to know sort of what we're doing
Yeah.
next. We're going to go and start labeling things maybe, is that the first thing?
well, start with a location and then maybe a sort. But, and we could just, since Barry knows that there are things in the fire station which could be, reduced, maybe we could, some of us could go there, and I don't think it takes all 5 of us to go there. It takes Barry because I trust the way he values what we've got.
I like the idea, I mean, I feel like Barry knows a lot about the collection. I feel like you know a lot about collection-related things. Compared to, and I know a certain amount because I worked with a lot of that stuff, but a lot of things we have here, I don't know what era they are or anything. So I don't feel real confident making the final decision. But I wouldn't mind putting a little note on something that says, might this be worth looking at? Or this I don't think would work. And then somebody else can sort of, who knows.
You always
Yeah.
need the worker bees. I'm willing to be a worker bee.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't have to make the decisions. But
Right, yeah. I think some of that, I would sort of slide into that category a little bit.
Do you want to schedule something before the end of March?
Sure, that's fine.
Which might be a trip to the fire station, and we all,
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
Monday mornings are always good for me.
Monday mornings.
You know, the one thing that might be good, unless your time is really tight, if you haven't seen all of the storage areas, it might be good to have a quick, because otherwise, you might say, well, we definitely should save it, but then you don't realize there are 3 others somewhere else.
Yeah.
So maybe it wouldn't hurt for people who've never seen any of the collection behind the scenes to whip through all. I mean, I would go with you just quickly
We can do that.
and if you don't feel that's necessary, that's fine.
Oh, I'd like to.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Then you'll see the big picture before you
Yeah.
start. Okay, Barry, I didn't mean to cut you off from that, from quitting, except I just wanted to
No,
know,
you're gonna decide
what
on
can
the
we
date?
do?
Well, when would, well, Lucy's identified a Monday morning. Is that a possibility for you, Barry?
Usually.
Usually, okay. And we've pretty much targeted the fire station as a place that we know can do some reduction. So, let's see. I guess,
We have the 13th and the 20th and the
is that right?
27th.
For some reason, all of those are open for me.
Yeah.
See, who plans anything on Monday morning,
Yeah.
you know?
I gotta
Often
take the
Monday's
dog
good.
to the vet,
Oh.
but.
I've been doing
Well, which
physical
one do
therapy.
you have to do that? You just pick the next one.
13th, yeah, but I don't have to
Oh.
be part of it necessarily.
Oh, all
I
right.
think Barry definitely does, and Lucy,
I would really like to.
she would like to, and
Okay.
Janet and Ellie. So if I can't if you want to do it Monday, and I can't make it, that's okay. But we have to, no, we can't do that, because we have to post
Well, we
it.
may have another day. I mean, is
Well,
there another?
Monday I have
post
physical therapy. This coming Monday I have physical therapy. After that I don't.
Okay,
So you want to do the
So we could do the 20th.
20th? Okay.
Sounds good.
And will that be just going to one spot and starting to really, or will that be just touring them all so that we have that sense of everything?
I
we
thought it
got?
was the fire
Yeah.
station.
Yeah.
Okay, so then Lucy,
what
if you want to,
Maybe Barry can take Lucy to the other places. Or,
What time do you want to start?
Okay, March 20th.
Fire station.
Well, no earlier than 10.
Okay. 10 o'clock is fine.
10.
What day have you picked?
This is
The
March
20th?
20th.
March 20.
Should be a Monday.
It is.
I might like to look at the rocks, though, since I've taken an interest in the other
I
rocks that
think you
were.
could come and join us.
We don't have to post this, do we?
Yes,
If we're
Site-
all
site visit.
meeting, then we should.
yeah, if it's,
Mm.
if it's
If
3
we're
or
going to
more.
have a quorum of the commission, which is 3, then you should, and you can just post it as a site visit.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, I do have to leave.
okay,
Okay.
thanks for,
All right, so Monday, March
Reorganizing that
20th, 10
morning.
o'clock at the fire station.
okay.
And the 31st for the demolition.
This is on our agenda.
So the agenda, oh, Janet, do you want to recap?
Not particularly, I think we kind of,
Recap
people
what?
didn't, well, she was just asking
Well,
if I was, had a wind up for it, but.
Yeah, she
I
wanted
don't.
to.
I
No,
think the
I
wind
don't.
up is that we're gonna meet on the 20th
Yeah.
of March
Yeah.
and start to review and
Yeah,
use some of your criteria for keeping
Yeah.
or
and think about, what we want to talk about, and do we need that piece? Yes, we do. Or no, we don't.
There are numbered items there, aren't there?
Hmm?
There are numbered items in the fire station.
Not much.
Not much, okay.
Not much of that is numbered. It's worthy of numbering, a lot of it's worthy of numbering, but it just doesn't,
We might,
hasn't
we
been.
might start to work on that too.
we might make a short list of things that should be numbered.
That need to be kept.
It's a monumental.
This is so big.
It doesn't
You
get-
guys talk about, oh, we'll just go do this,
But
and
maybe
it's
it
not
doesn't
like
get
that.
It's the
smaller by
only way you
waiting.
can
Not
get
like
it
that. I
started.
don't mean you can't work on it, but it's
Yeah.
not,
I think we do need to start working on it, and maybe it's little pieces at a time.
Oh,
but
yeah,
If
definitely.
you don't start, you'll never get anywhere.
no, that isn't I don't say that, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, don't think it's gonna get you an awful lot fast.
Well, that's
I don't
true.
think we expect that, but I think
No.
that we do need to start to say, and I think we need to prove to the rest of the town that we're actually
Mhm.
looking and evaluating and deciding on this stuff. It's not just getting left in storage for the rest of the,
Mhm. Well, it won't,
lives.
they'll just take it out.
well, exactly, and so if we don't express interest or care or consideration, they are gonna do something about it
The
without
more
our
input we
assistance.
have and the more we track, I mean, I could see that when Peg Stone came to that Hearst House presentation. I got a chance to talk to her, and I think you talked to her, and Janet talked to her.
Mhm.
And we all were encouraging her to look at the project as a whole. And she appreciated that, and
I said.
and she gave us, she made that vote unanimous
Mhm.
to,
Approve the Hearst House gift,
Right.
the whole project.
yeah,
Well, I said to her the other day, when I was talking to her, I said, it would be nice if everything that we needed could, because she had said that everything should fit into either the Bullard House or the Curatorial House, which of course is ridiculous. So I said to her, but I didn't say it was, I just said, let it go, it wasn't the right time, but later. Meeting, oh, yeah, is the meeting over? Not yet, we haven't adjourned it. Shall I just
No.
finish this one thing? We're not over
We're
yet.
still in meeting.
Yeah, we're still in meeting. He asked me, so Peg, now what was where did I leave off? Talked to her the other
well,
day.
she had the impression that perhaps it could
Yeah,
fit.
I mean, because, like she admitted to me that when she goes out in her barn, she doesn't know what's valuable and what's not, So, and I think that was probably true of not knowing for sure how many artifacts we really need to have a good museum and some backups. And she, so when I said to her last time, I think we are going to need more space than just those 2 buildings, because, and I talked to her about why. you know, and I won't go into
You
that here,
can't
because.
store it in the board house if you're going to be rotating stuff. in
Right, and if
out.
you've got mostly local people coming, you have to rotate or they'll just stop coming. And she understood. She said, no, I know what you mean.
And the cellar
And so
in
it's
the
just a
attic
matter-
there is not storage space.
No, and it's just a matter of working together on these things, and then people start to understand, okay, now, you know, I get why
get
we
it.
need to have a little more storage space, but not what we got right now,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I just
The
thought
good
I'd
thing
mention
is that we've been collecting for 70 years.
Yeah,
And how can you be collecting for 70 years and then it's gonna be 100 years and it's gonna be this?
It's never gonna
And,
stop.
and have it all fit in the same
yeah,
place?
I know.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
I remember
And-
we lived downstairs in the library.
We were in the library and we were occupying well less than half of the room with stuff. And that was lovely. Well, we got so that room was more filled.
Yeah,
And when we moved out of there, there was junk that we didn't take, that we got rid of. And then we went in, and we've had it in 3 or 4 places since. And when we got the Bullet House, then we started getting furniture. We didn't have much in furniture before that, 1 or 2 items. And we had no place to put it, and we understood that. We got the Bullet House, we got a place that we need to put furniture, we need furniture for. So then we started collecting furniture. So a lot of stuff, we have a lot of stuff that takes up some space now in the furniture department that we didn't have before. And when we had to, then when comes this, oh, and you've got to move everything out of the Bullet House, oh, well, that's very helpful. So, you know, we've got that situation. I think that it's important that people comprehend that the collection is always going to grow. And while we can jettison some things and so forth and so on, we're still going to have a desire to have things and more things over time. And so it's not all going to fit in the Bullet House and the Curatorial Building
well,
as they
now-
currently exist.
Yeah, I mean, how could you do that? You know, you wouldn't be able to change anything.
And we've been talking, I mean, actually have talked to a couple of people lately about adding on to the Curatorial Building, enlarging it, because
We probably-
we could easily do with double the space.
Yeah, and we probably could sell that idea, we'll be able to sell that idea better once we've gone through the collection and gotten rid of duplicates and this and that, so that they know that we're not just gonna
Even down to bare
add.
bones, where, yeah, where.
Yeah,
It would be
Yeah.
nice if we could finance it some way other than going to the town. That's my answer to that.
yeah, all right.
At any rate, now, what do we have something more on our agenda?
No, unless I've forgotten something or one of you has something else.
Oh, one question, is everything out of the Bullet House? I
No.
mean, we talked
No.
about the last time,
No.
and we never really made an appointment to
No,
say,
we
okay,
haven't got
we're
the
gonna-
rest of what was there.
There's
I moved everything from the upstairs, the 2 upstairs rooms that are on the east side. The rest of the mannequins are downstairs now, and I don't know, some of the mannequins did,
I
some,
thought some of them were still, I started to bring some down, but
Well, I had brought some down.
and you brought
before.
some down.
but they're all down now, and I swept the floor, it looks nice and clean up there. So mainly, I think the main thing we're waiting for is another trip from the people who are gonna get rid of the lumber, the crappy lumber and stuff for us. I think,
And that's the town.
and and so we were kind of waiting until we were sure we had everything
Yeah.
collected.
Yeah, so they can come once.
But other than that, the mannequins, and then,
And we've
Table
got,
saw.
and
The
some
table
other
saw.
There was
display
this display
pieces.
stuff that was on the upstairs.
and the display things.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it was really
The old
heavy.
screens and stuff.
Yeah, which we had talked about perhaps replacing with something lighter weight that the rest of us could carry without
Well,
hurting
that's all,
ourselves.
when you get it replaced,
Yeah,
then I'll listen to getting rid of.
Oh, all
Not
right.
getting rid of if we haven't got it replaced.
Yeah.
Because when the day comes that we want to do an exhibit, and if we have to acquire a mess of stuff, that makes it more expensive and more difficult to do that job, so. We'll keep what we've got until we've got the replacement lined up.
where are we gonna put it?
I don't know, we put it out,
I-
put it out back.
It ought to go to the fire station. I mean, it's the right thing to do,
Well, we
it's the
don't
right
even know if
place
we're
to
gonna
put it.
have the fire station.
And the biggest issue at the fire station now is that they've sort of told us, don't put more stuff there and blah, 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 and we gotta get, if they get the damn roof fixed, then we wouldn't have that issue.
You know-
We should be able to put, I mean, that's exactly where those things should go.
Yeah.
The problem with the fire station too is that you've got to carry it up the stairs.
It's
Well, and
not-
I have to replace the panel.
It's a
they have to
punishing
replace the
thing,
back
which I really don't
stairs.
wanna do.
You know, yeah.
I mean,
And the other thing that
We'll get
June and
some
I
other
were,
beef to move the things. I mean, that's doable.
June and I were talking about the safety of we're so careful to put papers and things like that in acid-free paper, and then putting them against these really dirty
surfaces.
surfaces. We'd have to figure out how, if we were ever gonna use those again, those screens, we'd have to figure out how to protect the stuff that was gonna go on it. Same with the mannequins and the clothing.
The mannequin, I don't pretend to know what is archivally safe for valuable clothing.
Now, some
In
those are
terms of
pretty dirty.
mannequins, in terms of exhibiting them, but our mannequins may not be up to any standard that we would want to continue.
We don't display things on our mannequins for a long time. We only use them for short times.
Well, a weekend maybe, yeah,
Well, the point is,
But
a
in-
couple of weeks, because
right. But
you're
in the-
dressing them beforehand and
but
you're
in the
undressing
bullet
them
house-
afterwards and
In the
all
bullet house,
that.
they might be exhibited for a longer period.
Are all the mannequins now in the Bullard House, or some of them somewhere else?
No, it's all in bullet.
They're all in the Bullard House. I thought there were more mannequins with legs. There's only two, I know, there's only two with those long willowy legs. I think there are only two that have legs on them, so all the rest have those cardboard things on them, is that right?
Mostly, and the point is a lot of the stuff is long dresses, so that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what's there.
But, so there really were only two that had the whole bodies.
It's actually.
I wondered if somebody had moved some of them somewhere else.
I wouldn't say just two, but there's only a few.
Yeah, okay.
I thought that a couple of them might have gotten carried out when they're emptying the bullet house, until I think we stopped them, because they don't take the mannequins.
Yeah, I don't think they left. They're not in Village Power. let's
They're
put it-
not?
No.
No, so I guess it's just those with the
So
skirts.
they didn't leave that
Yeah.
day.
Okay.
We didn't take anything, we didn't take any mannequins.
None of them went anywhere else, okay.
But I know some of them started to get carried out, and we stopped them.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
caught them before something
Yeah.
got put on the
No,
truck.
nothing went out of that stuff.
Well,
Well, we do want to put some of them at Village Power because they've got the painted faces and heads and things that we don't want to have in an unheated place. So some of them are going to go, a lot of them are going to go to Village Power. Some of them that doesn't have anything that we have to worry about that way can go to the fire station.
all right. Can I move to adjourn?
I will second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.